Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting starts in 3, 2, 1.
Tonight, we're going to have a couple of member speakers, and we're also going to have Frank Satara from Small Business Development Center giving us information. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors, Space Event Enterprise, for giving us the space to use, and Sean from New York State Vibes for his media. We don't have slides for,
okay.
But our last month's contacts are going to be Ken Doctor and Josh Amadon from Regan Companies. I think we had some flyers up there. So if you're looking for insurance for your businesses, you can check with them. For our current news, we just had the adult applications for growers. That's been put out for cultivations. That's going to be open from March 15th, and it's going to close on June 30th. So if any growers are in here and you're interested and you qualify, if I'm correct, there's supposed to be a growers open meeting tomorrow. So you should have an invite for that. The proposed regulations for the adult use dispensaries, retail dispensaries, that's been sent from the state for comment now. It's open. That was sent out on March 30th as well. They have a 60-day period. Christine put some sheets out there, so if you want any comments regarding retail, put any feedback, you can fill those sheets in. Otherwise, you can go to the New York State website and put in your comments that way. New York State also recently released their tax information for cannabis businesses. So if you're not connected with New York State taxes, you can go to their website, and then it's going to show you the information regarding the potency tax, which that's going to be a lot of studying. And then it'll give you the information for retailers where you'll have the 13% tax.
All right. I wanted to talk about some local events again. So Wednesday, oh, you have to have your pencils ready for these. I can also send out information using emails on the sign-up sheet too, that way you have it available. But we have a social equity committee event. This is an incubator town hall. It's online. It's held by NYCGPA's social equity committee. Mike Golden, our friend on the CNY committee here, is a member of the social equity committee as well. So we'd like to support him. Wednesday, April 13th, that's at 4:30 p.m. Again, it's online meeting. That same day, the 13th at 6 p.m., held in Corning, New York, there will be an in-person event regarding organized labor in legal New York cannabis. This is information regarding labor unions. So again, that one is in Corning, but it will be held April 13th at 6 p.m. And I would like to invite our friend Maggie up to talk more about the Arts and Music Festival that'll be happening at the Inner Harbor in Syracuse on 4/20.
Did she come back? I know she ran out.
She may have run out, but we can always grab her maybe at the end so she can talk about it. Mike Golden talked about it last month. It's a 4/20 arts and music event that'll be held at Inner Harbor. I believe it's a pretty much all day long event. I think it starts at noon.
And there are some flyers up in the table up front.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun one. I'm looking forward to that. A helpful resource I wanted to mention this month, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, NYCGPA does have a YouTube channel. They put a lot of informational content on there. All you have to do is search NYCGPA on YouTube, go to their channel. You'll see, I think, a couple of our meetings, a couple of regional meetings from around the state. There is a recent one from the Education Committee regarding the conditional cultivator license, and they'll continue adding content there for our own benefit. And next, we have some more friends in the crowd today. Some people who have been coming to these meetings from Taproot Fields in Skinny Atlas. They are a member of the NYCGPA, and I wanted to start some member spotlights so that everyone's aware of the individuals in the crowd, just to, you know, open up the doors for some more networking. So if I could have the Taproot Field guys come up here and just talk about their business for a little bit, that would be wonderful.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. You guys are an awesome organization, association, and love the networking. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Mic'd up, all right. There you go. Perfect. We are a hemp farm. We also do fruits and veggies outside of Skinny Atlas area. We've been doing it for about 3 years now. Yep. We are the idiots of planted 3 years in a row. Hemp is obviously kind of tanked a little bit, unfortunately, but we're hopeful that cannabis could help us back once again, right? We've got a lot of practice in this on doing pretty large scale cultivation stuff. We love regenerative principles and doing organics. That's kind of our mantra. We want to not just abuse the land that we are growing in, we want to make it better for future generations. That's kind of something that we live by, and we hope that this industry can have maybe better sustainable practices. We know there's a lot of plastic use in this cannabis market. We're hoping that CBD and hemp products could maybe change and replace some of this plastic, especially single-use plastics. So we are really excited. We like to partner and work with you know, up and coming and other farms that are struggling in the area. We like to collaborate with people and try to help them through this. We want to be community stewards and have a community in this. We are together in this, and we want to use each other as much as possible as a resource and, you know, ask questions. We're here to answer as much as we know, but do your homework too, you know, as much as possible. Lee here is...
What's the name of your farm?
It's called Taproot Fields. It's out of Skinny Atlas, New York, in a little town called Montville. And we've been there since 2018, or 19. Yep. Some of the stuff that we do, we have a whole line of products, to tinctures, to gummies, to sunscreens, to bug bite stuff.
Got some samples.
Yeah, all kinds of samples of things. We also work with another company to do these like disposable one-hitters. Obviously,
left a whole bunch up in front there.
Yeah, Bogarts. And so since COVID, sharing joints was a kind of an issue, right? And so this is a nice product to do safely consume and then properly dispose of, and they are recyclable. So, and it's really good if you're in a pinch too. We want to make sure that our buds last as long as we possibly can, and sometimes smoking a joint is kind of a waste, especially if you're by yourself and don't want to cap it, right? So, you know, we're trying to bring unique and different products, and that's one thing if you're looking to do this that I would suggest. See what's out there, be unique, be different, and then try different things too, you know. This is the American dream right now happening for a lot of us. It's a good place to find a different thing to fit in and a different product too. It is cool to be cultivators, but it's also cool to be business owners and coming up with all the kinds of accessories that are potentially going to be coming to market. There's a lot of
innovators.
The innovators,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of, and you're not going to be held down to a lot tougher regulations than the cultivators and processors. There's a lot of SOPs that you got to write in this, and that's not hard, but it's documentation. And really don't be shy away from that, but you have to have a plan for everything. That's what the state's really going to want for everybody, is a plan for everything. And if we're going to have success in this, I know it's going to be over-regulated, right? Because we want to make sure the consumers are safe, and there are people still that don't want this to happen. So,
And this is where we're hoping, I think, the Growers and Processors Association, where we can work together in writing and working through some of these SOPs, so we aren't, you know, a couple hundred people doing it all, you know, individually. We'd be able to help each other out a little bit. I think that's important. One of the things I will say that we're trying to do is, obviously, you know, we're pretty passionate about hemp and all its possibilities, you know, outside of the CBD market. It has 5,000 different uses, they like to say. And so what I would sort of put on you guys, and we're trying to do it, is if you do find that you're being charitable out there and you're trying to help others, see if you can incorporate hemp into it. Our first two projects that we're doing, my mother-in-law works at the soup kitchen in Auburn, New York, and she found that New York State changed the regulations where they can't use, you know, like the styrofoam plates and the plastic forks, but that jacked the price of their stuff up to go to the recyclable stuff. And so we donated probably 1 to 2 months worth of hemp-based recyclable utensils to the soup kitchen, you know, to help them through that period, but hopefully to kind of show them and others, like, hey, hemp can be involved, you know, in more than just, you know, a CBD product. And then we're working with our favorite veteran, Sarah from Ananda Farms. I'm sure most of you know her. And she's doing her little tiny homes on her property, and she's got a medical trailer that she's pulling together. And so we're donating, well, we're still trying to figure it out for weight issues, but either like hemp flooring or hemp insulation to the project, because ESM, the high school there, is pulling that together and actually making it. And so the idea is now we've got students out there who are now learning about hemp, that, oh, I could buy hemp insulation instead of the fiberglass garbage that, you know, is a nightmare to actually work with. So, so I put that on you guys as people who are stewards here in the cannabis or hemp world. You know, think of all the other uses and how can we introduce people to those products. So, and then just, you know, the other things, I've got some stuff here, but, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do is not to be monoculture, you know, type of place. Like, how can we, you know, obviously I think cannabis is going to be our backbone, right, and probably pay a lot of the bills, but we are looking, working with a local maple syrup guy to make a hot maple syrup. We have a black garlic that we're doing and turning that into black garlic salt, which we're partnered with the Syracuse Salt Company, you know, to make with us and for us. So, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunities. As someone who's, I don't want to say I'm new to the industry, but a little bit new here that Josh helped bring me in, I find that's probably the best part about this industry, is just how collaborative and how much you guys like to work with each other and be friendly and sort of, you know, come up with these interesting stuff. So I know we're into it. You know, if you find you've got interesting things, feel free to reach out. And
or if you feel like you have a product that could coexist, we'd love to collaborate with people that are interested in this. Our passion is also culinary, right? We feel like some of our stuff is going to make the transition to a lot more food products, as well as the beverage market. Beverage market's going to be really huge. We're going to see 35 to 40% transition from alcohol into THC cannabis drinks. So there's a lot of potential in that. So be creative with it. Think outside the box and then try different products and see what you like. Water soluble stuff seems to be the in right now, and you know, you're kind of chasing the market to see where stuff's going. But you know, if you guys are hungry in this, be on the lookout, stay savvy, stay hungry in this, and try to carve out a niche that really speaks to your mission and your goals. And I think you guys will have a lot of success in it.
And we left, I don't know if there's any left yet, but we did leave some tinctures out front, so you can kind of take a look. We were left a bunch of 2-packs of our one-hitters. Unfortunately, the business plan didn't call for handing out tinctures to everybody in the group, but we did bring a couple here for those to snag. So, but we really love this. We're probably on the newer side of members, but I know we've got a ton out of the membership so far. So for those that aren't members, definitely highly encourage you to join in. So,
and networking is big in this, for sure. Making good relationships. Obviously, that's everything in this industry. Names, and there's a lot of snakes too in this industry, so be wary. I hate saying it, but just be wary. If it's too good to be true, sleep on it, right? At least.
And we've got a group, ask.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
And this is the best part about it, is ask around. It's a free resource. A lot of people typically are tight-lipped about their, this. We want to be an open source. We want people to have success in this. If we don't, we want somebody else to have it. There's no competition. There's enough room for everybody to play in this space. And no one should own this plant. This is here for all of us to enjoy, right? And so that's our motto, and we hope others follow suit in this. And we also want to support local businesses starting this versus the outside guys coming along, with the big bucks. They're coming anyway, right? But if we can support each other locally on that level, then there'll be a lot of us that I think will have success in this.
And I'll say, we've got some of the products. If anybody's interested and want to see some of the things we're doing, we'll be sitting over here. We can pull them out and take a look. So, but thank you for inviting us to come in and speak.
Yes.
We're really enjoying our time here.
Thank you, Josh and Lee, for your words and your time. Appreciate it. Would you like me to start?
Just the one.
Oh, okay.
I don't like this.
All right. And Satara, right? Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys, we have our professional expert speaker of the night, Frank Satara, and I will let him introduce himself so I don't goof up his credibility.
All right. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey.
All right, so thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here tonight. I've known Jim for a while virtually. We're meeting in person actually tonight for the first time, but he's used our services at Onondaga Community College and the Small Business Development Center in the past. Now, a couple pieces of technical information to get out of the way here. Number one, cannabis, legal in New York, not legal federally. So, SBDC that I work for gets federal funding from the SBA, meaning I can't technically work with you as a client for a cannabis business. So I'm here tonight not as an SBDC Small Business Development Center advisor, but I'm here tonight on my own time, just for full disclosure. Not because I want a cookie, because I'm volunteering to be here tonight, but for full disclosure that I'm here on my own time tonight and not as a part of the SBDC work that I do day to day. But just to fill you in a little bit more on that is that I've been a business advisor, public business advisor for over 13 years now with the agency, and we work across industries in New York State and across the country to provide advising, consulting, business planning, financial proposal development, research, market statistics and data, and on, right? So that's what I do in my day job, and that's my credibility.
Thank you.
All right, for being here tonight to talk to you about this. And I didn't bring a slideshow. I'm just going to talk to you because I hope that you're going to talk to me. I'm not going to sit here and lecture to you all night, but I do have some bits of information that I do want to share. But I also want to be able to answer any questions that you have about business startup, business mechanics, business operations, the business plans themselves, the financial documents that you might need, financing, right, for your small business, research, and those things as well. And gentlemen who were just up here from Taproot said some really great things, and I have a few things to say in response to those, which I'll get to in a minute. But the first thing that they pointed out, or one of the things that they pointed out that I'll just touch on immediately here, is the idea of what's your niche, right? Where do you fit into this ecosystem that you all here are creating, right? Because you can't probably all sell the same thing to the same people at the same time and in the same place. So you've got to figure out where you fit in the ecosystem. We tell this to people all the time when they come in and work with us as small businesses, right? It's the number one thing if you're trying to start an e-commerce business right now. You don't go out there and try to be Amazon, right? You go out there and you start a business that's something along the lines of, I'm going to sell rainwear to mothers with matching suits for their children. You find an extreme niche to start your e-commerce business. Now, I'm not saying you have to create such an extreme niche for your business, but do think in those terms with the direction you're going. Throw out a few other pieces of credibility, just so you also see where I'm coming from in regards to my relationship with this community. I am connected to the farming community in New York in a number of different ways. I currently am on the board of directors of NOFA New York, the Northeast Organic Farmers Association, and I've been serving there for a couple years now. I also operate a small not-for-profit here in the city of Syracuse called the Alchemical Nursery Project, and we do urban growing, community gardens, and community development kind of work. And then related to that also is sort of permaculture. Gentlemen talked about stewardship, talked about regenerative practices and so forth, and a lot of the work that I do in that field is related to that as well, right? So really important stuff, really support all that type of activity entering into this community and learning from each other in that regard. Another thing that I want to share is I have a huge passion for cooperatives, cooperative business entities, okay? Anybody here a member of a cooperative? What's yours? Okay. Here in Syracuse? Yes. All right, Syracuse. Like I ran a cooperative restaurant in college for a bunch of other college kids. Okay, so you're a member of Syracuse Cooperative Market here. Yes. Sir, you had your hand up?
I was, it's not anymore. They were growing, you know, a little farm around here. I don't do that anymore.
So it was a growers co-op, and you were growing along with other people, and you were all bringing your product together.
So we had a piece of land, and they said, hey, get 10 people together, and here's your row, and your row, and your row, and grow what you want, and, you know, it was fun.
That's
We kept us from going to Wegmans for, you know,
Sure.
3 weeks, and,
sure.
you know, it was fun.
Yeah, good. Your hand up?
No, thanks. I'm coming from Ithaca. I'm currently involved in a co-op or farmer training program called Ground School Center. They mostly focus on LGBTQ and BIPOC future farmers to get them that experience and open business planning to eventually start their own operations, and most of the food we really give back to various community entities and food pantries. And a couple of the members, including myself, are trying to get interested in go towards a path towards and then eventually cannabis farming locally.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
How about Cornell Cooperative Extension?
Cornell Cooperative Extension is not a cooperative.
Oh, okay. Dang it.
So you'll hear the word cooperative thrown around, and I'm not going to get into technicalities. What's a cooperative? What's a not-for-profit? Cornell Cooperative Extension, educational not-for-profit. What's a collective versus a cooperative? All these different kind of things. We don't necessarily need to get into that. But I will ask you this: who here is a member of a credit union? You are all owners of a cooperative. A credit union is a financial consumer cooperative. You bought a share whenever you joined that credit union. You have, maybe you don't have the actual physical piece of paper, but you have a share in that organization. You get to cast a vote. You get to serve on the board of directors. You get to determine how the money is spent in that organization. Okay? That's the model for cooperative democratic ownership, governance, and management. So yeah, I have a big interest in that. I helped a nut growers co-op down in the Ithaca, Finger Lakes area get started a few years ago. They banded together to pool their money to buy a processing machine, right, for their nuts. I'm working with another nut growers co-op down in Pennsylvania that's doing the same thing. They want to create oils from hickory and something else, and they're working together to put their money together in a cooperative business entity to be able to afford and finance that machinery, right? So I say, keep that in mind as we're talking about businesses here, because the gentleman from Taproot said, we got to work locally together, and we got to form businesses amongst ourselves here and not just let the folks from outside come in with their big bucks. Well, if we don't have big bucks individually, how do we do that? Well, potentially one way is banding together in a cooperatively owned business entity and doing something along those lines. Okay, so that's important to me, and I'm always happy to talk about that at any time. And then, lastly, from just the progressive political spectrum, I've been involved in sort of a number of different political efforts in Syracuse, primarily to push policy and legislation for things related to, the cannabis and hemp movement, just as a member of certain parties that do that work. And so I've been a longtime supporter of this movement as well. All right, so that's me, and that's sort of my connection to all this. I'm going to talk a little bit about the business planning and the business development kind of stuff. But before I do that, does anybody have any top of mind questions that we can talk about immediately before I start rambling on more?
You said that, the financing aspect and so forth. There was an article, I don't know whether it was on the Association Slack page or it was in the newspaper. The state was going to create $150 million like a private equity fund to support the growth of individuals in the minority or segments of the community that have been disadvantaged, whether that's LGBT or women in business. Are you familiar with that at all, or are you aware of that? I read it somewhere. I'm looking for where this social equity fund, I think is what it's called.
I don't particularly know that I am familiar with that exact one, but one of the things I should mention is that the state-level agency, State-Level Economic Development Agency, Empire State Development, or ESD, will more than likely at some point in the future, at least this is what we've been told, begin to offer some more direct assistance, perhaps consulting, advising, business development kind of stuff. Since we can't directly do that yet, they're a state-level agency. They also often handle many of the financial grant and loan programs that come through the state, and they're the ones who do the outreach, marketing, and facilitation of those as well. So ESD, Empire State Development, should be on your
I think that was in the article at some point, that and they're also looking for private funding to enter into the, from the venture side to help fill the gap.
Okay. Yeah, something to think about.
I heard you say you can help in an official capacity, but in a, similar fashion, can you show up to the SBDCU or SBDC and ask for help on a very similar business that just does not say cannabis on it.
Yep. So, you could be if you're a cafe restaurant, right, maybe you happen to be planning to potentially serve a type of product on the menu, right? But you're just coming to me to talk about, let's develop a business plan for a restaurant or for a cafe, right? Or if you're doing retail, right? You mentioned the potential myriad of different businesses, right, that can be a part of this ecosystem. It doesn't just have to be the growers, the processors, and the retailers, the direct retailers of the cannabis product. It can be the accessories, it can be the marketing or professional services that specialize in these types of businesses and things along those lines as well, right? So, yeah, there's always a little bit of a line to dance around in this regard, but it's something that is doable. And I would encourage it, because the more you come to us and say, the more we hear from you, the more that we are able to then pass that on to our supervisors, to our administrators as well, about the interest in this as well. So, we're figuring it out as we go, right? We're figuring it out as we go. Yeah.
Concerning the requirements for micro licenses, just checking if anything's changed since the last time I checked up on this stuff. Is it still you need to have within 2 years of a successful hemp business to apply for a micro license, or has that?
That's just for the conditional cultivation license.
Okay.
They're releasing regulations for the other license types in May sometime, I believe.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the micro business is still quite vague. I don't think we have a lot of information or detail on that quite yet, but definitely we'll keep an eye out.
Is anyone made money on hemp?
The state is about to, just real quick, is like for years, it's been an underground business, and the cartels per se have made the money. Now, once this becomes legal, and if you open stores and grow, 13% or 18% of the revenue is going to go to the state, which is, I call it the cartel. Right. And it has to go to them, or they can shut you down, take your license.
My question really is no one's been a successful hemp grower for 2 years.
No, there's several successful hemp growers. Okay. It's just that the market hasn't been nice to the hemp growers. So the price of hemp went down, but the demand for CBD is still there. New York State and the federal government is still working on trying to get more of the nutritional values. So this way you can actually use hemp for products, the hemp seeds, and more for farming towards animals for feed. There's a lot of different options than just CBD. So it's just knowing how to be innovative with the hemp.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because I've been an abject failure with my hemp. And do I stand a chance? I mean, I've been a hemp farmer for 2 years, but I have not made a penny. I've lost money every year. I really haven't sold anything. And I want to know if I'm wasting my time here tonight.
So I think as far as being a successful hemp farmer, you had to have seeds in the ground, and then you had to have harvested your hemp. It doesn't have anything to do with, like, the success of being a hemp farmer. It doesn't have anything to do with how much money you've made from growing hemp. But did you, like, fill out the proper paperwork? And even if it was a total loss, like, we had a very wet year. We're in the Finger Lakes, and we lost a good portion of our crop. So even if you lost 100% of your crop, as long as you said to New York State, this is what I planted, and you filled out all your paperwork with the right timing, and then said, I lost my crop, that still counts as a successful year, even though financially not successful at all. As long as you were compliant for 2 years, you did it for 2 years, you went through all the motions, then you should.
I do want to point out, a lot of this is regulatory based. The USDA put out new guidelines for, to stay within certain parameters with total THC and Delta-9. There's also really hurting it between that and the extractors. Fortunately, they're kind of killing it. They do wish fiber to be more of a thing, or a dual crop, but really we're not set up that way currently. There's not enough infrastructure. And I will say that if you struggled with hemp, cannabis is even harder, quite honest with you. I just want to be real honest. The regulations that they're going to impose between cleanliness and testing is going to be even more stringent. However, hemp farmers already having some testing requirements through ag and markets and already have a relationship with a lot of the labs that are already in the state, and some of the SOPs that you're writing for some of this is what is giving us kind of the leg up. It's not that it's not that different of a crop. It's very similar, but it's the regulations that they're going to impose on us to deal with it, as far as how you dry it, how you cure it. It's not going to just be in a dusty barn with a dirt floor, right? Unfortunately, I think there has to be safeguards, because one of the problems with hemp is botrytis, molds, right? And if you are putting that to the market as in like a smokable form, that can have heavy consequences to the public, right? And so that's the difference between, I guess I would say, the legacy market and the legal market. Really, it comes down to the regulation, how much you're paying to have testing sent in. And really, it has to be done and performed in batch layers. So if there is a recall, you don't have to take all your whole, acreage to recall it. It could be a batch limit size. So we are hopefully advocating for smart regulations in this process. But to have the idea that it's going to be easy, I want to stop you there. It's not going to be easy. If you really struggle to do the hemp and get it to market, and what I mean by that is either you brought and made a product out of it, or you've actually had it processed into like a distillate in which you could save it or put it into products for a lot longer time. And it's really a safer form to do extraction, and really this year you'll see most people would want to extract because there's standards, right? You can't control what's going on outside. There's birds shitting on my stuff, right? How do you want to give that to somebody in the market and say it's quality, right? Is this your first meeting here, sir, tonight? No? Okay, so you're getting to meet other farmers like this gentleman who can happy to help you fill you in on this kind of thing.
Just real quick, you brought up the hemp business. I'm on the sustainability committee of the association, and we've had a couple discussions recently, and I talked to Brittany and Melanie today. One of the things we're looking at is, the cellulose aspects of hemp and the amount of hemp that would be required to make the packaging that, is ridiculous in today's. I mean, I've been to 25 different retail stores across multiple states, and I get a quarter thing in a plastic jar that's going to rust for 40,000 years. We're looking at how do we include that, again, from an industry standard perspective, and eventually that's going to trickle down to people who are growing hemp in some form or another, or different levels, so that you may have one field for packaging and one for however you do it. I'm not a farmer, but we're working on that as an association. So if you're not a member, I encourage you to get on board and join the association and join the sustainability committee.
Yeah, joining an association for your industry is key. You've got a great, looks like, start here. With this association, I'm sure there are others out there as well. The great thing about, an association for an industry is that there's focused information coming to you, right? And sometimes you have to pay to join that association, right? So we're going to talk about, the investment that's a part of it. That's important for you to consider. There's already a ton of people here who look like they want and can help you, so that's going to be a good start. Who here, let's see, a show of hands, who here is already in business? Okay. And are the rest of you looking to actually start a business in this realm? Okay. And for those of you who are looking to start a business, actually for all of you, do you have a business plan? Yeah, a few hands, but not a few people. Yeah, a few people are giving these. This gentleman's like, no. I'm not doing anything. He's like, no way. So, I want to talk about business plan a little bit, maybe a few components of it, and dispel maybe a few myths, and talk about a few options that you might have, because it's really going to be important for you to write things down, right, in some way, shape, or form, for various reasons. Number one, for regulatory issues, right? There's four prime reasons that businesses fail. One of them is regulatory reasons, okay? The second one is capital reasons, not enough working capital, not enough financing. Third one is management. Okay, knowing how to manage people, knowing how to manage your product, and get it to market and so forth. And number four is having the plan and carrying it out, all right? And making sure that you use that plan as a tool, right? If we think on the really micro scale about how a budget works, you create a budget, you take an action, you see a result, and then you take those numbers and you compare them to the numbers from your budget, right? You have an actual outcome numbers compared to a projected budget number, and that allows you to make some analysis and make some considerations of needs, changes, and focuses that your business might need to take, right? All right, so aside from regulatory issues that you're going to have things written down, you have to have things written down for financing and funding, right? Whether that is to a bank for a loan, whether that is to a grant program, whether that is to an angel investor. Don't get your hopes up for that one, but or for potentially for a crowdfunding campaign. All right. I'm happy to say that I've been talking about crowdfunding, especially regulation crowdfunding, since the rules changed 8-10 years ago or whatever, the laws changed, to make it something that is accessible for small businesses now. I finally got my first client who is launching a regulation crowdfunding campaign. Jake, you know all about this stuff, but this client here in Syracuse launched through a group called Honeycomb Credit, and he is developing a food hub, a distribution wholesale food hub for local producers in central New York, and his crowdfunding link is just going live, and a large portion of that, similarly to the co-op model before, is to buy equipment, right? Machinery that you need to do the job, right? I had another example of this on a very small scale up in the North Country. Friends who are farmers at a dairy farm who bought some specialty equipment for their dairy production. They did that through a Kiva loan process. Kiva is another online platform for crowdfunding. So those are, yes, sir.
I had a question. Is there a resource, like a community resource, that we can have someone review or help us look at our pitch decks or our business plans to because there's a upcoming a VC investor fund meeting in New York, and it's a competition. So kind of want to see if there's any resource around here that can help me look at my stuff and proofread it, see if it's good enough to go out.
Yeah, so like I said, unfortunately, not through the SBDC. We do have some referrals of some individuals who have some specialty in this area. Jim, I should share those with you too. Maybe you already know some people to contact in that regard. it's something that I can give a quick look at, outside of my job, to support this group and to support your efforts. There's always paid consultants that you can get to look at that kind of thing, right? Finance consultants and so forth that would be happy to do that. You should form a group to share that with each other, peer-to-peer, to get good at it together and practice putting those together. But a pitch deck is one of the things that you can eventually extract out of a business plan too, right? If you've already gotten a business plan written, or if you're working on a business plan and an opportunity comes along, like a competition like this gentleman is just talking about, then you've already got your information, extract it, put it into a nice looking deck, be able to present it then in the manner that the competition is asking for, right? So you want to have your information organized, you want to have your focus and keep your data, your statistics, your information, your contacts and everything, keep it together, keep it tight, right?
Speaking on statistics and numbers, considering New York City is kind of, and New York in general, it's a very unique state as far as population densities go, as far as urban population versus rural population. What would you consider to be a good representation, like a parallel representation or another representation of statistics that could help direct projections? Like, for example, in a business plan, or in a set of statistics as you're trying to pitch for an investment, to tell them, hey, listen, this is a viable business to invest in. This is a smart move for you. This is a growth business. I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that I don't have the answer for you right now.
I got one.
You got one?
You got to use national statistics.
Oh, yeah.
And that, or even, like we've got Massachusetts, you got Colorado, you've got states that have already been legal. You can use that. Answer your question. Slide Bean is an excellent pitch deck helper. I also used that when I was doing my pitch deck last year.
Thank you.
I think, so often when I get questions like this and it's something that I'm not familiar with or that the client doesn't understand how to go about, I often talk about backing into it, right? So, what is the market for your product in terms of the size of the market, in terms of the value of the product, right? What are you going to get for the price on your product? Then can we find a similar industry that's got a similar size and has a similar price for the product, right, that they're able to reach? And then we can get some of those national statistics. We can also, like if this is about cannabis farming, we can just look at farming in general, right, and do a comparison with that. We could find a product that's as close as we can get to the statistics that we're potentially seeing in the cannabis industry and look at that. So there's ways to back into it in a lot of cases that we could potentially find information that's relevant.
I guess my question is really posed in the sense that, LA being a state where, or California being a state where its saturation is so much different than New York's, like Denver or the area surrounding Colorado is just very different population density as well as Massachusetts and others that have legalized recreational. So I guess, I think that's kind of where my question relies more on, just like how unique New York is as a group.
You can go online and find a lot of information. For example, on the medical marijuana side, you can go and they'll tell you, like in New York State, it's 0.17, like 1% of the population is a medical marijuana card. Florida, it's 3%, 2.78. California is 4.86. So if that data is somewhere, you've got to mine it. And like there's somewhere you can use that. Again, numbers are numbers. Numbers don't lie, people do. So if your numbers are solid in your business plan, people can kick it around, but those are my numbers.
I will say that New York is the #1 cannabis consuming city in the world.
Yeah.
LA is like 4 to 6 in the list. So we're in uncharted territory here. And New York has had a long history of cannabis consumption, right? So it doesn't fit a lot of the metrics currently.
And political rallying, I mean, it's been vocal, I mean, 48 years running, big time.
Sour Diesel, NY Sour Diesel, one of the biggest strains out there, has commanded the highest price point for cannabis for a long time. And so I think New York is unique, and I think there's not true metrics there. You know, if you look at like Oregon, they don't have the people to consume it there. That's why the prices have plummeted, right? You know, as the interstate opens up maybe with federal legalization, we might see a big shift when that happens. You'll probably see more growing states producing in those states and then shifting it where it needs to be at some point. But I think we're going to have a long time period, 5 to 10 years of really good capital being made here before this market probably gets phased out too.
If you go to, like, I go all over and I research, that's what I do. I buy and write research. Florida, I remember in May of in January, I had to replace my tires and I went to Pep Boys or someplace. I went by Curaleaf and Medical, whatever it was. It was 8:55 in the morning. There was 9 people in line outside one store, medical marijuana. Up the block, there was 11 people out that store, and a half a block up the way was Chick-fil-A, and there was only 6 cars at Chick-fil-A. And I said to myself, boy, those 2 stores are going to be busier than Chick-fil-A. Florida's never going to do recreational. That's why they have a strong medical. But once this happens here, people are going to want to go in and pick up their bag of stuff and fly, or they're going to want to have an experience at a shop that, you know, gives them something more than a bag of weed or something. I mean,
And the micro business, I've been told it's been, at least they're trying to make it so that it's tailored after a microbrewery or a winery. So we don't know. I don't know if that's to like have those places like separate retail and cultivation, but their idea is, I guess, to make us like a winery. And New York does a lot of wineries up here, so you can already pull the market data from that and be like, well, this is how much a winery makes, and
Look at the Craft Brew. Craft Brew is the most recent. This is going to be bigger than Craft Brew.
You have to do the best you can with what you have, right? Even a more typical business that comes to me, I often can't find them really good information at the state level, right? Because it's just not been collected, or it's just not available through the channels I have. I may be able to get good information for the Northeast, right? A larger region, more sample size, and so forth. So we do the best that we can with what we can access,
Thank you guys for your response. I really appreciate it.
All right, business plan. If you're nervous about writing your business plan, I tell people, and writing your financial projections, this is my other bit of advice. Number 1, who here kept a diary or a journal or anything like that when they were growing up? Anybody? All right. Think of it that way. Start writing shit down. All right? Just start writing shit down. Say that again. Start writing shit down. Just start writing it down, right? Get it out of your head where you're going to forget it in 5 minutes, and put it on paper so you can go back and read it. And it's a process, it's a practice, it's a habit that you're going to have to get into or get back into, right? Number 2, who here likes things like crossword puzzles, Sudokus, any of that kind of stuff? People enjoy those kind of things? Yeah. I mean, you don't hate them, do you? You've done it before. You were probably a kid at some point, you're doing a crossword puzzle, and you're like, this is kind of fun, right? Word search, all those kind of things, right? I tell people, think of your financial projections as a number game. Right? Think of it as a crossword, or a cross between a crossword and a Sudoku. You're putting numbers together into a table, into a graph or a spreadsheet, and make those numbers add up to make sense. Right? And you got to find that information from wherever it comes from. So if you're starting with a line item budget, where do you get those line items from? Well, fortunately, that's probably fairly easy to find. We know that we can get that information for a standard retail business, right? If we're talking about retail. We can figure out what those line items are. We can also figure out good guesses on things like occupancy costs, right, per square footage occupancy costs, things like utilities, you know, all that kind of stuff. We can figure that kind of stuff out. Marketing too, right? I mean, like he's talking about right here, how does a winery or a brewery market, right? You're thinking along the same lines. Create that marketing plan, connect the numbers to those action steps in that marketing plan and that timeline and how you're going to produce that information, right? Yes, sir.
So I'd like to point out, when it comes to marketing in this business, it's going to be very restricted. So I would encourage people who are interested in getting into this business on the retail side, in any aspect, but especially the retail side, to grab a hold of the bill that the state put out, the legislation that was passed, dig through it and look at the marketing restrictions that they've placed. I think you're going to find there won't be radio spots, there won't be billboards, there won't be pop-ups and internet ads. This is going to be restricted. Marketing is going to be restricted very much like tobacco marketing and alcohol marketing, but probably closer to the restriction on tobacco than alcohol. So be very aware that marketing is going to be a completely different game than marketing any other product, even if you have marketing experience in the past.
They will be allowing, I think, billboards. They're following the Michigan model. Michigan has a lot of billboards. You will be able to market on the internet, and you will be able to market through electronic media. You just can't say I'm selling weed. You can sell experience or something else, but you're right on that. Dig through this.
And you can't do like social media paid advertising, but you can have a social media page that goes into depth of like what your business does and education.
Just education.
And then the federal tax, there's an article, I think, in the Cannabis Insider recently that talked about Section 280 or 208, that certain items are not deductible in the cannabis industry, such as advertising, marketing, employment costs on a retail level for large employers. Now the state will have to amend, and that someone's talking about has to amend its tax code so that you can take those advantages on a state level, but you won't be able to on a federal level until something happens.
All right, great. So we're gonna get right, and you're gonna have at some point, Jim, we're gonna have like sip and journal nights for folks to get together and do some, parallel play. You know the term parallel play?
Yeah.
That's when you sit down together and you just do things together, right? Alongside each other. So you sit down, you write your journals next to each other, and you're supported by the buoyancy of the people next to you doing it alongside of you at the same time, and you can sip some wine or something, whatever it is that you like alongside of that, right? Yeah.
Parallel play.
So that's something I really want you to start doing and start thinking about, right? Is getting that down. So we talked about the fact that you've got association networking, the business plan, the financial projections, the niche or the business description and the vision, right? Important parts of all that. We talked a little bit about marketing, and of course we're going to have to learn more about that as we go. And then just a general management of the business, right? The operations, right? Things like insurance, accounting and bookkeeping, legal representation if needed, registration of the business and so forth, and all of those kind of things, right? That's just something that you're going to have to be aware, right? As a small business, you have to get that into place in the appropriate and legal way. You know, when the CARES Act passed and there was all this federal money for small businesses to try and access, many of them could not access that money because they weren't legally registered in the appropriate way as a business. They didn't have proper records of their books and of their finances. So when the government says, hey, show me the books to get the money, they couldn't do that because they weren't sort of playing the game, right? They weren't playing the legitimate game. And so I want to make sure that, you know, we know that the regulations on this are going to be intense, much more than a standard small business would be. So it's even going to be more important to keep that in mind as well. All right, so let's just see if there's any other specific topics that folks have out there that they're rolling around in their heads.
Very good. Learned a lot.
I don't have a topic, but like as I was saying earlier, I'm going to an event in New York City. It is called MG Unpacked. It's highly selective to get in, but it's where Cheech or Chong, I think it was Cheech, he did his unveiling of his brand, and basically it's all a pitch competition versus, and also networking. To even go, you have to be a licensed operator or show that you have an application that's ready to be submitted, and that includes proof of funds from your CPA, a letter of intent from your lawyer, or any kind of official documentation that proves your company or something. Yeah. And then there's like a $100 and something fee, but after you go, you can there's like a pitch stage where people are doing their pitches, and the winner gets a certain amount of money and some sponsorships, and if you don't win, I guess you get to put out your business plan to like 100 different people all at once. You can't beat that.
There you go. And speaking about financing, let's talk about that a little bit more, because if you're not lucky enough to win a big pitch competition, right? We've mentioned the other options that are here. One of the primary ways that people finance their small business, the two primary ways. One is from personal savings, right? Second is from lending from financiers. So you can also be preparing for that situation right now by having an up-to-date personal financial statement, right? That's like the budget for your business. It's the budget for you, for your household, all right? You can get a template for that. I can share a template, 2-pager, right? You're listing your assets, your liabilities, et cetera, because if you start a small business and you go to get a loan, who do they look at for cash, credit, collateral, right? They don't look at the business because the business hasn't been operational. They look at you as the owner, right? Or the owners. And so you got to have those ducks in a row too for financing. There's other ways in the capital stack to finance a business to create the availability of funds or credit, right? At the very least, and so those are things to think of as well, right? How you're going to finance the business. What are the sources and uses from a broad spectrum, getting down to what are the specific sources of that money and how you're going to try to access it as well. It can't be said enough, right? Having enough funds to operate that business and make it work. All businesses don't turn a profit immediately, right? Or in 3 months, or in 6 months, or in a year. The general guideline, which is, I've seen very, very, very few businesses reach, is that you should have 6 to 12 months of working capital accessible to you when you open the doors, right? I mean, so, if it costs you a couple $1,000s a month just to operate this location, a lease or something, and then you've got all your other operating costs on top of that, and then you multiply all that by 6, do you have that money in the bank, or do you have access to credit for that amount of money if things don't go according to your ideal revenue plan, right? It's sort of looking at what are the contingencies of this business's operations, the contingencies of the revenue stream and the cash flow that's coming in. And if you're looking at a loan for that, you're looking at either a term loan, right, or you're looking at potentially a line of credit that you can use.
I thought that we couldn't use any banks to get a loan for the business.
There's some banks you would be able to. You have to take and search and do your homework on those.
Right, a personal loan or line of credit on your home or something?
There's private equity out there waiting to jump into this.
You said what now?
Private equity.
Okay.
So I have a couple guys that I've been working with who are looking to get into this organization that lend money.
Okay.
Credit unions too. Credit unions won't do it because the feds, anything tied to federal money can't happen. So right down to where we store our money. So it's all cash business. Everybody knows that. but where you store your money and everything like that, no banks will let you, if they know that the money is coming from cannabis, they will not let you store your money there. So there will be a banking system coming into the area. They'll deal directly with that kind of stuff.
Just like the cashless ATMs is what they operate on right now.
Yeah.
And there's a company
You
called.
just don't say that you're don't put cannabis company on your right?
Yeah, all you have to do is doing
Corporate and LLC, subject to,
Eventually get on board, and do not hide your cannabis company and lie to your bank, because it will get you blacklisted, and you will never be able to get banking again if you get blacklisted.
And the Fed will just take it.
That is the worst thing.
the Fed's taking it.
Be upfront.
By at least
Credit unions will eventually get into the banking system because they're not FDIC insured, they're state insured. But they're also waiting for the regulations and kind of dipping their toes into it right now. If they are working with cannabis companies, they're very secretive. They make you sign non-disclosure agreements with who they are working with. And then there's also talks about, Jeremy Cooney has talked about this a little bit, recently with the state somehow getting involved. I just want to make it a point. Don't go to a bank and try to paint your business as not a cannabis company, because that is going to get you blacklisted, and then you're never going to be able to get banking. That's a bad move. So just putting that out. And and even loans with banks, you're talking a 12 to 14% interest rate if these banks are working with cannabis companies. So that's the reason that a lot of people go private equity, because it's actually, unlike other industries, it's actually usually cheaper to go private equity than it is to go to a bank. And then you're also talking about cash deposit fees of 2 to 3% on top of it too, just to put your money into the bank.
So I know there's a company, I don't want to name drop them, but apparently they do FDIC insured banking, but basically they are like a third-party manager company that does the onboarding and due diligence for these banks that do want to be risky players in the cannabis business, and they do all those the onboarding and stuff for them. And basically, you never even work with the bank; you worked with this mediator. And they charge like a $600 flat fee a month, but then the bank charges like half of the 1% fee for the cash admin side.
That's good to know. I'm sure more of these types of services will be popping up and developing. Just one note, some credit unions are federally chartered and not state chartered. I'm on the board of Cooperative Federal Credit Union here in Syracuse. We're federally chartered, NCUA, National Credit Union Association. So if you are looking at the credit unions, recognize the difference between the two there. Yes.
Actually, when we're talking about financial stuff, I wondered if anybody knew about the American Competes Act that was passed the other day, had a subline in the bill for cannabis financial reform. And if anybody knew any more details about that, other than that it's now passed the Senate.
Don't know anything about that.
I know it's the second time it's passed the Senate, and that they don't think it's going to pass the House.
That's a different bill. That's for cannabis itself. But this was a whole big bill with a whole bunch of pork barrel, and right in the middle of it was cannabis banking reform.
Yep.
Is this federal or?
Federal.
So not safe?
Yeah.
Not safe?
Well, it's not safe. It's kind of like it. It had some of that writing in it, but I don't know any details of it. I wondered if anybody else did.
Will be a good thing to send around to the list and make sure people are aware of that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's also the cooperative license that's being offered in New York State, and I think that's really interesting for people who are like doing their own financing and maybe worried about your crop. The cooperative will kind of allow some small and vertical integration within your cooperative and how you partner, and that can help hugely for finances. So we don't know yet what the regulations will be for that, but
I don't think you can vet outside your cooperative. If you get a cooperative license, I don't think you can vet outside your cooperative. It's only the co-op members.
Just as a little caveat stuff.
Interesting, I did not read it that way, I know.
I have a large piece of property. I know we're allowed a square acre. May I have a quarter of an acre here, 3/4 of an acre over there, and still call it my farm?
Anybody know that?
Yeah, I've heard that they don't care as long as you don't go over the square footage, and you have to like submit different site plans for each one. That's all I've heard though.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have one more question about the fence.
Doesn't everybody?
My property is like, you can see it from the road, but I mean, you really have to go, I don't know, almost a quarter of a mile to get to where I want to grow. And if I put a fence up there, that's saying, hey, come back in 3 months, you know, everything's going to be ready. But if I can grow corn in front of the fence, then they don't see the fence and it's not really an eyesore. It's just, maybe I could like put up a fence in July as opposed to putting one up in April. Is that a possibility?
I don't know the regulations on that.
No one knows those regulations yet because they haven't come out on fencing yet. That's the whole thing. That's one of the things that they missed when they came out with the cultivator license, temporary one there. They didn't even include any of that, so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Most farmers are talking about doing the deer fence. And that's what the association is going to be trying to push, is that they do the deer fence.
I've talked to multiple people that are just, way better at it than I'll ever be. And they're like, you need a fence, and I'm not spending the fence, I'm spending the money on the fence. I'm not going to make an eyesore out of it. So I'm
You have to wait and see, I guess.
I can't really see you asked a question about the pitch decks, but there's an office at Bird Library on SU Hill called SU Blackstone Launchpad, and it's like a university-wide, like open to the public. You come in, you fill out a piece of paper about what your business is, what you're interested in doing. The students get a binder, and if they're interested, they get involved. So you get MBA students, with the students, and stuff like that, so they can help give you feedback. You can kind of pitch in front. You can help them have design, so it's kind of apprentice, free labor, if you want to look at it like that. But that's what they're geared up to go to the world and make a living doing. So.
Maybe, but I don't know if, are they federally funded in any way?
Say what?
Are they federally funded in any way for that program?
It's a university program. I don't know if there's any other.
And the university is not doing cannabis courses. So.
Actually, just started.
It's trash.
That might be a good relationship for our organization entity then to explore, because we weren't informed of that sort of opportunity if that's happening with Blackstone right now with cannabis businesses. So we could at least take, if we do intake in our organization and we have to refer them out to Blackstone for those specifics, we could do that.
Now, has anybody signed up with the Office of Cannabis Management for their emails? Because they just came out with an email this morning that the New York State Department of Labor is going to be starting a cannabis development workforce. Because if you're interested in becoming an employee and not a business owner, you can go to their website and get resources. And even as a business owner, I tell you, that's going to be a good place to go.
It keeps going down. It says business resources after those too.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked into that yet, but it seems like it's going to be.
What's the website again?
Well, yeah, what was it?
It's dol.ny.gov/cannabis-workforce.develop/develop, excuse me.
We can send that one out.
I will say the OCM as well has the provisional guidance worksheet and some information there. If you're not tuned into that, I would definitely start there and just getting to know as much of the code, what's out to date. Will save you money trying to go and decipher it from a lawyer's part. You know, if you're the owner, you should want to know as much as possible about these regulations. You'll save a lot of money. And I know it's kind of wishy-washy on what the gray area is on this and just lack of some of the information. But hopefully mid-April, we should see another round of something. Otherwise, they're going to miss this season, quite frankly.
They're under pressure.
So they have to know something here.
Yeah, our agency does refer people to the Office of Cannabis Management whenever they come to us.
They don't want to miss a year tax. They'll get it done. They've been told to get it done.
All right, is that it?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Throw Maggie up.
Is Maggie here? Is Maggie here?
So I feel like it's wasting my goal. We're gonna I'm here because I'm volunteering and I'm doing the CNY 420 festival, which like I told you guys about last meeting, and which we've had to actually make insuring it. Like as of today is insured, and so that means in 2 weeks there is going to be a CNY. And it also means let's say sponsorship. We have more spaces for non-cannabis vendors, so it could be non-THC vendors, hemp, CBD, house plants, etc. So there's some vendor spaces, there's some sponsorship spaces. The big thing is I'm hoping that there's like people here for not just this neighborhood. Because I have flyers, as you can on the front table. There's big ones that you know are and a nice one, and there's a ton of good sizes. Please help us disseminate the word. Our kind of biggest goals are that anybody who wants to get involved in organizing this, who's interested in the industry, and wants to like jump in all together and do a fun thing, reach out and have you help. And the second is like everybody who loves cannabis in Central New York at least knows that you know for 20 bucks they want to. And then once you're next, please grab flyers and help us and hit up the higher calling if you're or an on-farm. But the higher calling because an on-farm is doing all kinds of stuff right now. So hit up the higher calling if you feel like you could help with any of this.
Thank you.
420. It's a Wednesday, noon to 10 o'clock. Bands in the middle. Big smokes. How do I close? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we still have a little time before 8 o'clock, right? Yeah, we got 15 minutes for networking, so go ask your questions to all your peers.